So, hello everybody. Oi pessoal, hoje o vídeo vai ser um pouco diferente. Vocês vão ter o vídeo todo legendado aqui embaixo. Eu tenho a honra de apresentar para vocês, ou de trazer aqui para o canal alguém que dispensa apresentações. Eu estou com o Christopher Wallis, o Hareesh, autor do Tantra Iluminado, do Recognition Sutras e de outros livros dos quais eu sou muito fã. Já fiz um vídeo aqui no canal sobre o trabalho dele, inclusive recomendei o Tantra Iluminado no vídeo em que eu falo sobre o Tantra verdadeiro, o Tantra original, a diferença entre o Tantra e todas essas pseudoterapias. E aí eu vou fazer a entrevista toda em inglês, então vocês vão vendo as legendas. I was just explaining them that I already told about your book in another of our videos. So Hareesh, be welcome here.
Thank you. Obrigado.
So we just finished a beautiful workshop with you with many important themes for our days, and we are trying to create this connection between all this knowledge, this ancient knowledge that we are taught by you, that have at least 1,000 years old to be precise. And my first question to you is, how does this non-dual Tantra respond to all this so-called social disease of individualism, competition, and consumerism?
Well, non-dual Tantra as a tradition doesn't respond to such things, but you could ask the question of how would a tantric practitioner, or perhaps better, a tantric master, respond to these issues from the view of their tradition? And I think that's an interesting question to ask. And what you were saying, consumerism and what else?
Individualism and competition. And guys, I'm a little bit nervous to talk with someone who teaches me so much, so you get over all that.
Forgive him. Okay, so yes, classical Tantra has something to say about this, and I think the whole Indian spiritual tradition would have something to say about this, which is, let's take first of all consumerism, because we consume in order to fill a void that we feel. We feel some emptiness inside, and we try to fill that emptiness with relationships, or sex, or ice cream, or shopping, or whatever, social media.
Or all of that.
Or all of it all together. And the problem is, basically, that it doesn't work, And Tantra teaches that we all feel ashamed to have this emptiness inside, but actually everyone has this emptiness inside. And it looks like a problem from the point of view of the mind in society. Oh, emptiness, that's not good. I shouldn't be feeling that. And you feel deep down, I'm nobody. That's not good. I'm supposed to be somebody. Society tells me. But then Tantra says, actually, this emptiness, what you call emptiness, if you go into it, you discover it's pure openness. It's pure spaciousness. And yes, deep down, you are nobody, and that's beautiful. You're a nobody who can become anything at any time and relinquish it once again also. So that's exactly the tantric teaching. Your true nature is this sacred nothingness that can become anything, any sort of experience. So you see, the whole problem is that from the point of view of the mind, you look in at the emptiness. Oh my gosh, it's a problem. And in meditation, you learn how to become the emptiness, and then it's beautiful. It's this beautiful openness to life. So if you are trying to fill the void inside with these experiences, then you're doing the opposite of what's going to work, which is to become that emptiness. And then every experience that happens, it's just fine as it is, because you're not trying to use it for some other purpose. You just enjoy it for what it is, right? So this is a very important teaching, and it has been for centuries. You know, it's just that the consumerism has gotten even worse than in times past. And so if we want to get this teaching out there, because it just doesn't matter how much you consume, doesn't matter how many lovers you have, how many things you own, and you know this already deep down, you know it's not gonna matter. So try a different strategy, and this way of meditation that Tantra offers us is a different strategy. And then one more thing, because you mentioned individualism. Yeah. So we're taught in society, right, to be an individual and to do our own individual thing and to get famous for it if we can, right? But the thing is that individuality is actually a kind of mental construct, Tantra says. What does that mean? It means that in reality, all of us are completely embedded in nature. We're completely embedded in our environment, okay? We're embedded in our biological environment, in our social and cultural environment, and we're a product of, on the body-mind level, I mean, we're a product of our environment. So there is no separate self to be found. We're each made by our environment, physically, mentally, emotionally. So when we try to pretend to be a separate self, then we feel this alienation, you know? We feel this loneliness or angst, right? And that it doesn't have to be there, you know? It's just that the society is trying to encourage each person to make their individual mark. But actually, a mark will be made by your passing through this world, whether you try or not, you know? So what if you make the mark on the world by living according to your truth, according to what matters to you, not what society says, right? And you might find that instead of being an individual, that being part of something is more fulfilling, you know? And so we can actually learn how to dissolve that separate self and be a part of the pulse of life, and that itself is enough.
Not as just a concept or just a philosophy, but as an actual experience.
Yes, and also, you know, like these days you put on your website your bio. You know, this is who I am and all the things I do. But actually, you are not your bio. That's a story you tell about yourself. And so, you know, if you are fixated on the story, then if people like it, you feel great. And if people don't pay attention, oh, you feel terrible, you know? So, of course, we can have bios, but they're just tools. They're not who you are, right? And who you are is something that we can't even say in words. So we need to like actually bring some attention to the experience of that can't be said in words. But nothing in our capitalist economy will push you towards that. You have to come to it in yourself. Wow, yeah, I need the experience that can't be said in words to make this life more meaningful.
So you are now hearing a lot of noises because today we didn't bring a mic and any other equipment that you are using, but yeah, we could not lose the opportunity to bring Hareesh to talk. So my second question, because he is passing all these days lecturing non-stop, so we will just make a different movement. I just put you to speak philosophy directly now. Tell us a little bit about you, if you don't mind, because I think it's important nowadays that Tantra is so mistaken by all this Neo Tantra and New Age stuff. How did you start your own path in Tantra? How did you start? How did you discover the real Tantra? And what would be the advice for those who want to seek the real Tantra?
Yeah, so Neo-Tantra, is this teaching of sexual cultivation or sacred sexuality that has been happening in the West for actually over 100 years. A lot of people don't know.
Yeah, that's a new story for me.
Yeah. But, it only got more popular recently, of course. And so people confuse it with classical Tantra because it goes by the same name. So here we're calling it Neo-Tantra, but most people who teach it just call it Tantra, So there's this confusion. But Tantra is a spiritual tradition that started 1,500 years ago and peaked about 1,000 years ago, as you said. And it has almost no connection with these sexual practices that people teach under the same name today. So it's actually a very long and complicated story how this misunderstanding occurred. So you can read some in my book, and there's academic articles about this complicated story. But enough to say that classical Tantra is a spiritual path, a yogic path, right? It uses techniques of yoga, but also other things, insight cultivation and beautiful ritual practice. And, many people, for example, have seen the colored sand mandalas that the Tibetan Buddhists use. Well, those actually came from Tantra. Those are tantric diagrams. And so it's just an example of how, Tantra is there in Tibetan Buddhism and other traditions, but often they don't use the word Tantra because of all these misunderstandings, okay? But it's a spiritual path of awakening and liberation that an individual goes on and then connects to community. So yes, we have community, but Tantra is not a thing, classical Tantra is not a thing that couples do. Okay, so that's one of the easiest ways to tell the difference. If a couple's practice is being taught, then it's Neo-Tantra, and it might be good. If the teacher is good enough, Neo-Tantra can be a good thing for people. So we're not just putting it down, right? But classical Tantra is not taught for couples, it's taught to individuals, even though they're also within a community, of course. They're not just on their own, usually. But it's an individual path of awakening to your true nature, which I already alluded to a little bit in these more philosophical comments, right? And becoming radically free. So becoming free of mental suffering, becoming free of ego, becoming free of unhealthy attachment, and becoming free of the fear of healthy attachment too is a tantric
and the fear of annihilation. And
yes, becoming free of fear. That's the goal, of Tantra. Deeply free. And in a way, most people think is probably not possible, but we say no, it is possible. And there are people who have done it, and you can do it too, because the practices are designed to work on any human being, if they're patient enough. So I came to it, it's a long story also, but my first guru was not a tantric guru, but she would quote tantric masters, okay? But she didn't use the word tantric. Like, this is very common in modern India. Some tantric sources will be quoted, but people don't say tantric because of all these misunderstandings, right? So my guru, she's a beautiful being, and she was a great teacher of a very simple kind of meditation, which was good for me as a beginner, right? But she would also sometimes quote these tantric masters, and then she called the tradition she was quoting from Kashmir Shaivism, because the works of literature that are called Kashmir Shaivism and the works of spirituality under that name are part of a bigger phenomenon called Tantra, which she herself didn't know at the time. But anyway, she would quote these authors, and I would feel something something is there that's just so sparkling, you know, so special. And so then I start investigating more. Oh yeah, this is this Shaivism it's part of this bigger thing, Tantra, that was not just in Kashmir, but originally everywhere in India before the conquests and the colonialism and everything. So then I started studying more and more, and then I found some professors who were scholars and practitioners, you know. So around the year 2000,
such like Mark Joukowsky, this kind of,
yes, and Paul Muller, Ortega, and a couple of others. And so I was studying with Paul Muller in the year 2000, and you know, finally started reading tantric material, real tantric material, and I was just, you know, blown away. And then from then on, that's been, you know, the focus in my life. So that's, you know, going on 23 years now, becoming more and more and more of the focus, because it's such a beautiful tradition, you know. So yeah, just studying and practicing for many years, and finally, you know, when I managed to get over myself, right? When I managed to get past my own mind, that's when it started clicking, you know, because I have a good mind. And so I studied and I understood. And then I finally realized understanding is not it. The mental understanding is not it. So I had to be humbled and realize my mind can't, you know, make enlightenment happen, right? So then finally it started clicking on this deeper level when I surrendered my attachment to mind and understanding, you know? And so then I started really experiencing the way of being that caused these teachings to be produced in the first place, you know, experiencing the states of consciousness that created these teachings in the first place. And I don't claim I've experienced all of them, but certainly life has changed so much and become so much richer, and also more peaceful. Yeah. So that's the short version of my story.
So what would be your advice for one who wants to start? Because now, thanks to people like you, it's easier for us Westerners to discover the way, the real way to real Tantra, to the real practices and the real tradition. So from where should one start?
Yeah. So I'm kind of a traditionalist, even though if there's some traditional teaching that I think is not good for people today, I'm willing to throw it out. But for the most part, I honor tradition. And the tradition says, okay, first get oriented to the perspective of this path and make sure it resonates with you. You should only walk on a path that resonates, you know? So that's the purpose of like this book. If you read even just the first 130 pages, that's the summary of the whole tantric view. And if your heart is excited, or you know, if you feel this is right, I love the way I connect to this teaching, or it aligns with my perspective or whatever, something like that, then we know, okay, so this could be a good path for you to practice on, you know, if you feel that resonance. And then you start doing the practices, simple ones. So for example, on my website, I have this Foundations of Tantric Yoga course, and you just start doing these simple practices of awareness cultivation, you know. Maybe you're doing some mantra practice, maybe you're doing some embodiment practice, right? Because in this path, we don't leave out the body, we don't leave it behind. And then you can go deeper and deeper. So people have this idea, oh, I need to get the formal initiation from a guru. That used to be true, but it's not true anymore. And the reason why is because in the old days, you had to receive initiation formally in order to access these teachings and practices at all. But now, most of the practices and most of the teachings are available. You don't need the initiation. So the reason I don't recommend trying to get some formal initiation is because for most people, that just becomes part of their ego.
Mm-hmm.
They just go, I'm one of the special ones now, you know. That's not
I'm
good.
a part of the special club.
Exactly. It's not good for the ego, for the mind. So you don't need that. What you do need, of course, are teachers and peers and senior peers that you trust, who can help support you when you run into some trouble or confusion or something. So I'm certainly not saying you don't need teachers, because you do. But you don't need this old-fashioned formal guru-disciple relationship, you know. Some people love to have that, and if they find such a guru that they can trust, fine. I'm not against it, of course. I'm just saying the idea you need that to practice Tantra, that's no longer true. And if you ever, you know, want to get access to more advanced or secret practices, then maybe you need that. But most people don't. Like, they're curious about the idea. Advanced practice, secret practice, no. But most people get all the benefit they need from the more simple practices.
Yes.
Because the advanced practices are extremely complex.
And long.
And long, it takes so long, you know. So, you know,
if you really want to,
yeah. But it's not strictly, we can't say it's necessary for awakening, because awakening itself is simple,
mm-hmm.
right? It's learning how to come to rest in what you already truly are.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big part of it at the beginning at first. So don't make it overcomplicated, I say to you, watching it, because then you delay your own awakening process. Let it be simple. The truth is simple. The mind is complicated. Okay? So, and good luck to all of you watching. If you engage in this journey, it's an exciting thing. But again, connecting with community. And I know, like, you take people to India, to some sacred tantric sites, for example. Mm-hmm. And you know, having a good guide on this sort of journey, literally or metaphorically, it makes all the difference in the world. Yeah.
Thanks. So everybody, I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for giving us the interview. I'm honored. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that everybody loved. So if you don't know Hareesh's book, it's available in Portuguese. O Tantra Iluminado. It was translated by Edgar Bikelis, my Sanskrit teacher, and by Malu, that she is here behind the scene. Says hello.
Hello everybody.
And now, in a couple of months, we will have the second book available in Portuguese as well, isn't it? Yeah. So this one? Mm-hmm. Oh.
With a much beautiful.
Oh,
this is the English.
That version I don't have. I have the English version, but it's not so fancy.
Yes,
like that.
This is the hardcover.
Oh, yeah. I have the.
But Malu's designed a beautiful new cover inspired by this one, and for the Portuguese.
Will I have a hardcover in Portuguese?
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
So the recognition sutras will be available.
Os sutras do reconhecimento de si.
Sim.
So, quando que vai sair?
Esse ano.
Esse ano. E logo. And will you be back for sign to everybody?
Probably in March of 2024.
So
yeah.
Just save the date. Thank you, Hareesh.
Thank
you, everybody. Hope you enjoyed, and see you.